because we don't give up. Knock us down, and we come back swinging.
Hey guys, Dantics here. I played Dragon Age the Veilguard to 100% completion. The first playthrough took me roughly 60 hours, and I've invested more time in other playthroughs. I sat down to write a review, but I thought I'd just turn the camera on and talk, without spoiling anything, of course.
I'm Commander Shepard, and Dantics is my favorite channel on the Citadel.
You don't get the discount.
What?
Let's start with this. Did I enjoy Dragon Age the Veilguard? I loved it a lot more than I thought I would. That's surprising enough to many of you, but out of almost every game I've ever played, certainly out of the games I played this year, Veilguard needs to be experienced to be truly appreciated. Just looking at YouTube videos doesn't seem to do it any justice. I'm sure I'm struggling right now in post trying to find the right footage to put with this, because even looking back on my recordings, it doesn't look as fun as it actually is. The combat looks janky, but I was wrong.
Am I so out of touch?
I thought departing from the RPG-like combat system of the other three titles would be its failing, but the combat has to be the best out of the four. That's coming from an RPG-focused channel. Looking at the individual parts of the combat system, it's easy to see how many of you don't have faith in the game, but together, I don't know what it is. At times, the game feels like it was made by very different hands, cobbling together a Frankenstein monster masterwork that just, to quote Todd Howard, works. The biggest success of Veilguard is choice, and that will be the overarching theme of this review. Combat-wise, you have an excess. After playing 60 hours with the Rogue, I'm still discovering things I can do in combat that I haven't realized before. So what I mean by 100% is that I got everything that could be gotten, including all the achievements. I've also seen all the major outcomes. I've finished the game as all three classes, though I did rush through as a warrior, so I do need to go back and give it a good shot. I would recommend playing as the warrior or the rogue first, as mage takes a bit of time to get into, and the other two classes bring a lot to the table in this new combat system specifically. And that's coming from someone who enjoys mage the most in these kinds of games. All three classes are quite different in practice, having different combos between lights and heavies, jumps, charges, and skills you can unlock that change those up. Then you have abilities and specializations to consider. There are so many potential builds between gear pieces that can be upgraded in rarity to have more abilities when you find or buy duplicates of the item, meaning you don't find a lot of junk in the game. You also have enchantments, you have a robust skill system with specializations, and your companions who have gear slots and a skill tree as well. Companions function in combat as a sort of extension of yourself, so you always feel as though you have many more options that are presented to you initially. In my Necrotic Duelist Rogue build, which should be up on the channel now if it isn't already, I used Emmerich to lower necrotic resistances, spread necrosis, and set off combo explosions that I set up and heal me, while Lucanus would capitalize on necrotic damage. I felt overwhelmed at times with the sheer potential, and finding unique items changed my build trajectory more than a dozen times. I went back briefly to Inquisition to compare combat, and that feels extremely sluggish in comparison. So yes, the game is very fun, but with that being said, it's not without its faults. It doesn't, at the end of the day, look as polished as many other games currently released. If you want a combat system that will visually wow you, this isn't it. I especially didn't like the look of combo explosions, which is a shame because even back in Mass Effect 3 days, Bioware had nailed them. But the game runs smoothly, and on my high-end PC, I never dropped a single frame. Even with a pre-release build, I ran into a grand total of 0 bugs. This has never happened to me in my lifetime. It's common to expect a few here and there when reviewing a title because you do get an early build. But I digress. The polish is there in the integrity of the title, but it doesn't look as polished as some games. But that's mostly with character models. They stand out against the mostly beautiful looking environments. Like I said, the game is a Frankenstein's monster. These characters aren't the most convincing we've seen Bioware produce in the past. Animations are sometimes off, and there will be immersion breaking moments. The engine used was perhaps a little limited, as the models themselves have very strict proportions. So if you want a big butt or breasts, it's not happening. But this does seem like a technical thing rather than a political. Even Isabella, well...
Where
Now to quickly address some concerns, some people don't like that you can't directly control your companions. Well, this is legitimately a different form of combat, so switching to them would feel a bit odd. You have more than enough to do controlling one character, but I do understand your concerns, and if you want a Baldur's Gate or any Dungeons & Dragons inspired combat system like Origins was, this isn't it. Now, story-wise, there were some concerns that the game doesn't tie into the previous games as much as it could. I can't comment directly on this for spoiler reasons, but there is some validity to that, and there isn't. Could it have done more? Yes. Were there reasons why it didn't? Yes. Was I happy with the story overall? Yes. Though this may mean you may not be happy, as fans all have different expectations. The environments, though, like mentioned, are beautiful. They're varied and numerous, considering they're all handcrafted. You have the sprawling Arlathan forest to the living blight-covered wetlands, the Hossberg wetlands, that's it. I was going into this expecting dark parts of the game to be dumbed down, but there are many dark environments and themes here. Story-wise, past the potentially weakest first act, I became extremely invested. Consistently throughout the experience, you'll see the payoffs of your choices or the consequences. There is this sense of cinematic grandeur at many points in the game, but none like the end game. Without spoiling anything, this has to be one of my favorite endgame set of missions in a long time. It gave me real Mass Effect 2 vibes, as the choices you'll make all the way up to that point pay off or bite you in the ass in tangible ways. All the work you put into your companions and the factions they belong to have a reason for existing. Each companion have missions that tie into the world somehow, and it's really their attempt to quell the chaos. There's multiple missions for each companion, and ultimately a choice between two paths that have very different rewards that aid them in combat. The game ties together lore from the Dragon Ages before it, with returning characters and a proper conclusion to the Dreadwolf storyline, with twists and turns that I didn't see coming. Many of you will be happy to hear that there are no cliffhangers here. I feel as though new players will enjoy what Veilguard has to offer. It is a great entry point, but those who played Inquisition and the Trespasser DLC will get more out of it. All that being said, the writing isn't flawless. There are a lot of cliches.
It's so quiet.
Too quiet.
To keep something out?
No, to keep something in.
So if you want to sleep with anyone, you've got to pretend to like it.
Ugh, it's all so complicated with the flowers and the romance and the lies upon lies.
There are also a lot of moments where you see what's happening from a mile away, but it's still charming. Some quests I had a genuine ear-to-ear smile, as the structure felt very Mass Effect. Each and every quest takes place in handcrafted areas, and that direction is extremely refreshing after playing Inquisition. But these areas can also, surprisingly, be explored. There are world puzzles here that end with a unique item that you'll be scrambling to solve. You'll revisit areas for side content, but the thing is, I never once was sent on a fetch quest. Side content involves saving whole factions from destruction and discovering evil plots and other actually interesting mission ideas. The only time you'll be wasting time is when you're struggling to solve a puzzle because you absolutely must get the chest just out of reach. And of course, when you're revisiting your hub, the lighthouse, to check if companions have something to say, and you end up playing paper, scissors, rock with Manfred for far too long. Speaking of companions though, their personalities are drastically different, so I found myself vibing with some and not the others. Whenever there was a situation where someone may get screwed over, I chose Nev to cop it because she has this smugness and this stupid hat that I could never get past. I'm gonna put it up on screen now, look at that thing, just get it out of my face. But to be serious, some companion quest lines are much more interesting than others, and I can't elaborate without spoiling things. It's a problem because some you'll be on the edge of your seat with, and some will have you falling asleep. Oh, okay, Tash especially won't vibe with everyone, as while other companions are fighting giant skeleton golems and assassinating targets, they're having mummy issues, and the overall message they're trying to get across is being beaten over your head 7 times. Well, 7 is where I stopped counting at least. The good news is you can focus on what you like because there'll be something there for everyone. though the romances I experienced weren't what I consider to be Bioware's finest work. So after all of the developer interviews, I was expecting some juicy affairs, but in practice, they kind of seem muted. When romancing Balara as a male at least, it feels like there is no passion. You're talking about her brother, then bam, you have the option of being in a relationship. Up to that point, and even beyond it, you're standing around a meter away from her in all conversations. Flirting has devolved into a compliment that is barely acknowledged, and you have no option for intimacy. You can even give a griffin a big juicy hug, but not your apparent partner. It does feel slightly asexual at times, which reminds me there are no desire demons, oddly enough, in the game. So if you're playing for that kind of fantasy, stick to Baldur's Gate 3 for now, as it understands that realm much better. Now, the music and sound design are good, but nothing really blew me away, and there's nothing as catchy as the Mass Effect series, but it's well made and does immerse you in the world. Nothing ever blew me away, but nothing ever broke immersion.
Beautiful work, Ned.
So like I mentioned, the game took me around 60 hours to fully complete, and I tried to complete everything I could before the final missions. There's a lot of content here. Even after I finished it though, I found myself wanting to go back and replay the game. It's a surprisingly tight experience, and like I mentioned, I never once felt like I was wasting time, be it traveling to a destination which is fast or doing mind-numbing tasks. So to get 60 hours out of it means a lot of work was put in this game. Your choices will result in different outcomes, so wanting to see all the points of difference is something many of you will want to do, as well as of course trying out different classes and specializations. So many of you will milk many more hours. I've never been more tempted to start up a complete failure run just to see what will happen, so actually keep an eye on the channel because I'll probably do that. So I admit there were two parts of this game where I teared up, but I won't tell you if it was from joy or sadness. You can figure that out on your own. So to put a nice little bow on this, Dragon Age the Veilguard is a fantastic experience, filled with an abundance of choice, cinematic grandeur, RPG elements, and ultimately, fun. It isn't perfect, but it's something that I feel a lot of people will pass on, but really enjoy if given a chance. I don't give ratings because I find them kind of arbitrary, but this game would be right up there. So thanks for watching. If this video was helpful, let me know below. For everything RPG, you're in the right place. Ciao friends.